Hey, before we get started on the show, this is Mike. I just wanted to check in and let everyone know that we did have some technical problems for the first 10 minutes of the episode or so, but by the time we move into the News on the March section, we get them all figured out. I hope it's not too distracting. You should be able to hear everything okay. Just a heads up, it gets a little quiet for a second on my end. Thanks a lot.
Hola muchachos! In this week's episode, we're going to talk about The Invisible Man, but before that, we're going to talk about Onward and HBO's The Outsider. Plus, we welcome back Justin, who was gone last week. Welcome back, Justin.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. All right. Quit taking up so much time. Let's do this!
Welcome to the Casual Cinecast, powered by Cinelinx. My name is Chris, and with me today is a man that's celebrating his birthday as we record. Mike, how are you doing today? And happy birthday.
Pretty good. I had to take off my party hat and the little, what do you call those things that you blow?
Noisemakers? I don't know.
Just party noisemakers or something like that?
Yeah. Well, anyway, I took that out of my mouth so I could record.
Yeah, that would make for an annoying podcast for sure.
Yeah, I did it all day at work, and then everyone got mad at me.
That makes sense. Also with us is the original Invisible Man. You can't tell that he's invisible because we're doing a podcast, but he is. Justin, how are you doing today?
Excellent.
That was confusing.
Yeah. It's like, well,
you can always tell a Milford man.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
Arrested Development joke.
It was. Yeah, I got it. Yeah. I'm glad to be back, even though you couldn't have tell that I was gone if you were watching us the first time because I am invisible.
That's true.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop your hot takes, though.
No, it doesn't. Also, I didn't get a chance to a second ago, but happy birthday, Mike.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Good.
We were going to sing, but we canceled it, so we're just not going to do that.
But don't worry, listeners. You don't have to wish me a happy birthday because by the time you're listening to this, it won't be my birthday anymore.
Does that make you sad? It won't be your birthday anymore?
My birthday arriving in general made me sad.
Oh.
I'm beyond the point where birthdays make me happy.
Okay. Well, then I guess it'll be a good thing. This will be another regular day by the time this comes out.
Get out of this day. And let's get out of this segment. If this is your first time listening to the show, normally we like to start off every episode in a section called News on the March, where we talk film, TV news, or movies and TV that we've been watching. And then we move into our feature review. This week, we'll be discussing The Invisible Man. But, guys, before we discuss The Invisible Man, I had a question, but now as I'm getting closer to asking it, I kind of maybe shouldn't, but I'm going to anyway.
Uh-oh.
That's a good way to live.
Yeah, just take that into consideration when you give your answers so we don't get weird here. If you could be invisible, what's the shadiest thing you would do that you want to talk about on the show, that is?
Surprise you for your birthday.
Oh, you've already done that. You don't have to be invisible to do that, Justin.
That's true.
That's the shadiest thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want to even know about all the good stuff I do outside of that. It'd all be great and amazing. I'd fix people's stuff. Just fix,
You'd be like the Buttercream Gang, surprising people with fixing stuff.
Wow, what a reference.
The Buttercream Gang?
Yeah, it's a deep Christian film cut.
Yeah, and a deep cut that I know extraordinarily well because I watch it all the time as a kid.
Me too.
And I am completely lost.
Yeah, we'll fill you in another time.
Yeah.
Chris, what's the shadiest thing you would do?
Well, something to get money, like rob a bank or something.
Yeah, that's immediately where my mind was going to go, which is just go rob every bank I can. That's not like a small town mom and pop bank.
Yeah, or fix the lottery or something like that.
Yeah. See you later, JP Morgan.
Yeah. Yeah, I like fix the lottery. That makes me feel better than robbing a bank. I don't know. Robbing a bank still seems hard because you'd have to...
That's true. It seems more trouble than maybe it would be worth. Yeah, maybe even being invisible wouldn't allow you to do that.
Yeah, it still seems hard.
That's true. Good call there.
Yeah. I might go to a bunch of movies for free.
I might mug I don't know, really, really rich people that don't deserve that much money. Mug them on the street because I'll be invisible,
Yeah.
You would do that?
If I don't know. If it's someone...
I feel like Sofia Coppola made a whole movie about that, except for they weren't invisible.
And they didn't mug people.
Yeah, they just robbed their houses.
I was just thinking like bad people, like drug dealers. You know what I mean? Like they have all this cash on them.
So you'd Robin Hood it, or you?
Yeah, more like a Robin Hood situation, like people who aren't earning money, and I wouldn't feel bad robbing them.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
Just like,
but I wouldn't
just
give
like
it to anyone
Jennifer
else.
Lopez in Hustlers.
I just give it to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Jennifer Lopez in Hustlers. There you go.
That didn't turn out bad.
Yeah, but she wasn't invisible.
That's true. People could very much see her, a lot of her.
Yep.
If they wanted to.
Not invisible at all.
Yeah.
All right, so one of the things we do here on the Casual Cinecast when we don't ponder the deep questions of what you would do when you're invisible is we do a Criterion episode
Well,
every
hang on.
other.
Is there any other time to ponder that question other than when reviewing The Invisible Man?
It's true. It is the time to do it. I do it outside of the podcast on a regular basis myself, but yeah. But every other week we do a Criterion episode in which each of us choose a film from the Criterion collection, and then we put it out onto the interwebs for you, the listener, to vote on. We have recently done that on our last episode with guest host Matt Ward, and now we have a winner. Mike, please, if you will, announce those winners.
Okay.
Or just winner, no winners.
Drum roll. Wonderful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Very dramatic. Okay, so the Criterion poll winner from the theme chosen by our guest last week, guest Matt Ward. He chose the theme female directors because, I guess we don't talk about enough female directors on here, so he's trying to make the show better for us.
It actually worked out, too, because it's International Women's Month, or we just passed International Women's Day, I believe.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I think it's today as we record this.
Oh, perfect timing.
Yeah, everything is
Could be
happening
wrong.
today as we record this.
Yeah,
But
well,
not by the time you're listening to it. But anyways. So the winner for female directors was, with 52.9%, The Virgin Suicides, directed by Sofia Coppola.
Yes.
Number 2 was chosen by me, and that is Cleo from 5 to 7 with 38.2%. That was directed, of course, by the great Agnes Varda. And then Ratcatcher, coming in third at 8.8%. That was Chris's choice. And that was directed by Lynn Ramsey.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I kind of won this because Matt was replacing me. And he even told me later that he chose a film that he thought would be one that I would have chosen.
Is he right? Would you have chosen this one?
No. Not particularly, not because I don't like this movie, but I would have chosen another female-directed film from the Criterion Collection that I love a lot, like one of my favorite films of all time.
Oh, yeah. If anyone cared about that, we could stop and talk about it right now.
Yeah.
But
Obviously
let's
we don't.
move on.
Yeah. Anyway,
Please.
I'm just kidding. What would you have chosen, Justin?
I would have chosen Fish Tank from Andrea Arnold.
Oh, I thought that might be what you were going to go for.
Yeah. If you know me at all, or like you guys have, like for the last 9-10 years since that movie came out, you'll know that I'm a massive fan of Fish Tank.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing, and so there really would be no other choice for me unless you guys beat me to it.
Didn't we watch that together?
We did.
I remember that. That's the only time I've seen it, but that movie pops into my brain frequently.
Yeah, I think I've seen it 5 or 6 times since. I've watched it a ton. I
Wow.
think the last time I watched it was maybe a year ago, maybe a little bit less, with my fiance, because I think she watched it around the time we first met, based on my recommendation, I think, and that was the last time she watched it. But we had never watched it together, and she was like, she thinks about it all the time too, and she was like, let's rewatch it. So that's the last time I watched it, and it's still awesome.
Yeah. I
But-
want to see it again. I'm jealous.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of in that boat with Virgin Suicides. Like, I haven't seen it in forever. Like, the first time I watched it was maybe 2008 or something like that, which is a good while after it came out.
Yeah. I watched Virgin Suicides first after Lost in Translation came out, and I was thinking that Sofia Coppola was like the next big thing. And I really enjoyed it. I don't remember it as much as some of her other movies, but I remember it fondly from what I do remember.
That's exactly my feelings towards it, actually. It's kind of really vague in my mind somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, I know I've watched it. I remember watching it.
It'll be fun to revisit.
Yeah, I look forward to it. I'm really excited. And actually, like, serendipitously, I came home from work today, and my fiance had pulled out like 4 or 5 movies from my Criterion section that we were potentially going to watch tonight. We didn't end up watching it because dinner got ready late, and I had to come up here to record, so we didn't have the time to watch it. But
Duty calls.
yeah, one of the films that she had pulled out was Virgin Suicides, and she had not seen our poll. She had no idea, what it was.
She doesn't
So it
keep
was
up with our social media and our show?
Every week but this week she does, I swear.
Oh, it's because you weren't on it, that's why.
Yeah, she doesn't care if I'm not on it, apparently. But yeah, she had no idea, and so she pulled it out as one for us to potentially watch. So, I think it's kind of a sign that it's time to watch it,
For sure.
Cool. Well, if you want to vote in our next poll, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Casual Cinecast. The poll will be up on our Twitter, but we post about it on Facebook as well and post a link to it so you can go vote that way. If you want to send us questions or topics to discuss about the movies we're reviewing every week, you can send those to any of those social media accounts. You can also email those to casualcinemedia@gmail.com. And then, of course, if you haven't done so already, you like the show, you want to help other people find it, go onto iTunes, give us a 5-star review, and also subscribe to the show if you haven't done so. That way you can get every episode right when they come out.
Please and thank you. Okay, and with that, guys, are we ready to go ahead and move into news on the march?
Yeah, let's go.
Do it.
News on the march!
All right, guys. Before we move into our review of The Invisible Man, first, I have some sad news. And it makes me sad because it happened on my birthday.
Which you were already sad about.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. And that is that Max Von Sydow has died at age 90.
And it's one of those things that's a bummer, but 90 is pretty good.
That's a good run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's sad, but it's certainly not tragic.
Right. Totally.
Yeah, but just, since we are a Casually Criterion half the time podcast, I thought it would be appropriate to, at least pay some respects, because Max Von Sydow has been in some classic things. I mean, everything from The Seventh Seal by Ingmar Bergman all the way to Game of Thrones and Star Wars. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The guy has done everything. And he is a legend, and he will be missed.
Yeah, his first film was 1949, and then, as you said, he's been in stuff very recently. As recently as 2018, he was in a couple of films, and that's my math says it's a 69-year career of just being in stuff regularly and being awesome.
Yeah, like I said, he will be missed, and I just thought it would be nice to pay respects to him. So rest in peace, Max Von Sydow.
For sure. Is there any film that you guys can think of that would be more iconic or that you would think of, or moment or something that you would think of in film with him other than the knight and death playing chess from Seventh Seal?
For me, the Virgin Spring comes to mind.
Yeah, that's I agree.
Which is obviously most popular because it has been remade a couple times into various versions of Last House on the Left. But it started as an Ingmar Bergman art house film with a similar title, but I wouldn't exactly call that a classic.
Right, sure.
At least maybe for movie nerds, right? For people who might listen to this show, it's a classic. But
yeah,
my dad would disagree with me.
Sure. Yeah. I think if you've seen it, or at least for me, the other image that's for me almost as strong as the knight and death playing chess is him tearing out the tree out of the ground in Virgin Spring.
Yeah,
that's just one of those not even if I'm thinking about Max Von Sydow, I just think about that from time to time. Just this shot that just kind of floored me and stuck with me.
Yeah, that movie is really great, and I would actually love to watch it again. But, a lot of people, a whole generation of people, I think know him from probably Game of Thrones and maybe The Force Awakens, the very first scene in The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Those are, I think, probably the most popular things that younger people might know. But if those are the only things you know of by Max Von Sydow, do yourself a favor and learn more.
Yeah,
you're lucky. You get to watch all those movies for the first time.
Yeah. Also, Rush Hour 3.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
I forgot he was in that.
I haven't forgotten since I first saw it, just because it was this weird time where I'd just gotten into cinema, so I'd seen The Seventh Seal and was still very much a fan of the Rush Hour movie, so I made all of us go see Rush Hour 3. And it was just this weird intersection where I was enjoying the heck out of Rush Hour 3, but then recognizing, oh, that's the guy from The Seventh Seal in here.
Yeah, I had that experience with Roman Polanski in that movie.
Oh, yeah. That's true, too. I don't think I was quite aware of that one until a rewatch many years later.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable kind of.
More or less.
Yeah. It's funny, I was actually just talking about Max Von Sydow yesterday and about how, like, he's one of those actors that, like, has looked the same age for so long. You know, like, it didn't seem like he'd aged at all.
Like Bruce Dern?
Yeah, he looks old in Seventh Seal. I mean...
Like, you can go to the King of Marvin Gardens with Bruce Dern and Jack Nicholson. And, yeah, he's, like, getting ready to be 90 in that movie.
Yeah.
Even though he's probably, like, 20.
Right. Well, cool. So I guess if you want to hear about Seventh Seal, if you do go watch it, we did do a podcast quite a while back. It was one of Mike's first episodes, I think.
Yeah, that was one of the first times that I flew solo with just Justin, I think.
Yeah.
Because Chris was doing something lame.
Yeah. So we do have
The
a good
theater.
Oh, yeah, the lame theater. We do have a long episode out there on the Seventh Seal if you do watch it or if you are curious about it. You know, go way back in our list of episodes and find it because it's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at least I think it is. It's pretty early in my podcasting career, so it might be pretty cringy. I don't know.
The movie is good, and sometimes it's hard to talk about a movie that good without having a good conversation around it. So I'm
sure we stumbled
just
upon
assuming.
something good in that conversation.
Totally.
So, Chris, I believe you and I are the only ones with something to talk about this week because Justin has been busy.
Oops.
I tried to say that with as much disgust as I could.
Oh, you said it with plenty, okay?
So Chris and I actually both watched The Outsider, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, but I want to save that for last because Chris actually watched something else this week that we're going to talk about because it's new.
Yeah, I watched the new Pixar film, Onward.
Wait, that's Pixar?
Yeah, it's Pixar.
I thought it was like DreamWorks or something.
No, and I would say it's on the level of some of the DreamWorks films. Spoiler alert. It's a good movie, is what I would say, but it's not up to the Pixar standard. You know, Pixar made Toy Story 4, all the Toy Stories, and oftentimes they make great movies. Onward is a fine movie, is what I would say.
Yeah,
and
this is with the cars.
Yeah, like it's or Good Dinosaur, maybe.
Oh, Good Dinosaur is worse than fine.
Yeah.
I would say Good Dinosaur is actively bad.
Well, this is a fine movie, is what I would say. And I think it's kind of, the movie is split between two things. There's like, in the movie, it's about a fantasy world, like a D&D type setting that has moved past magic and has modern technology like light bulbs and stuff like that, and people have forgotten the past, essentially, right? And it's also about a father that's died and left a spell for his sons to spend one last day with him. And I think that splitting of the focus, both on remembering the past of what you used to be, and then the father thing, it doesn't feel like a whole as good. But as always, like, I think Pixar does a great job with world building and making this world feel lived in and fresh. That's really good about the film. Yeah, so I guess all I would say is it's a really solid film, but not up to the Pixar standards that I'm used to. I know we talked about doing this, reviewing this film for our episode, but I do know that we were all sort of lukewarm on it, and I was wondering why you guys felt that way. Does it have to do with the way they advertised it or the lack of advertising? Why did we all feel lukewarm on it?
Justin, would you like to go first?
Sure. Well, I felt lukewarm on it, I think, because it was Pixar. And had I not known that it was Pixar, I would have felt less than lukewarm, if that makes sense. Like, nothing about the movie, the trailers or the concept or much that I saw about, like, really got me excited, other than I was like, well, it's Pixar, and, you know, sometimes they knock it out of the park. So, like, I'll give them, you know, my money for the chance that maybe they, you know, really nail this one. So that's kind of where I was on it. And not that I was, you know, I don't know, lukewarm is a bit of a stretch, because it was just kind of like, I was kind of cold but hopeful, and maybe that hopeful bumps me up to lukewarm.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I would say I was not looking forward to this movie. I even tried the last minute and ended up recommending The Invisible Man because I didn't want to watch this movie. And I don't exactly have like a good reason why. Like, now that I know it's Pixar, I maybe would have been a little more accepting. But I don't know. Based on what I've seen, the character design looks pretty unoriginal. Like, they're just like these purple things that look kind of boring. You know, like every year we get like 5 or 6 of these like CGI cartoons, and most of them are crap, like Secret Life of Pets and Minions and et cetera. The list goes on to infinity, you know? And basically, I didn't think this movie offered anything in the advertisements to, I don't know, look interesting, even like the slightest bit. I am not really into Chris Pratt these days. I'm kind of tired of him and doing his Chris Pratt thing. And without having seen the movie, I'm willing to bet he's just Chris Pratt this whole movie, right?
I mean, I think there's a little bit more to it than that, but yeah, I'm wondering if I went into this movie not knowing that Chris Pratt was in it, if I could pick it out. And I think that there is a chance that I wouldn't, you know, other than recognizing the voice. I don't think there's necessarily like character traits that are specific to the characters that he plays.
Sure. Well, it seems like with a lot of these cartoons, these CGI cartoons that come out every year, what they'll do is they'll cast like really hot actors right now. Like not physically, but, you know, just like hot on the scene, you know, actors. And that seems to be like enough for them to go ahead and greenlight these really mediocre movies that look bad and aren't that interesting. Because it's like, oh, we got John Travolta to be Bolt. Or we got, you know, Brad Pitt to be this dude in Tangled that no one can remember. Or like, you know what I mean? Like or like we got Jack Black to be a panda that does Kung Fu. It seems like they have like these really bland ideas. And then they're like, well, we got to make a cartoon this year. What actors would work? Let's go and slot them in. It doesn't matter. They're interchangeable. What?
I like Kung Fu Panda.
Well, I actually do too. I like Kung Fu Panda. I'm not trying to throw I'm just trying to think of all the movies that come to the top of my head. But basically, these cartoons seem like a dime a dozen. You know, unless they have some heart and soul in them, like Up or, was it Coco that came out last year? Or the year before?
Not last year.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
3 years ago.
Yeah, like, or, you know, some of them have heart. But then sometimes they come out like here's a perfect example. Sometimes you get Toy Story 3. Which is like the gold standard, right? And then sometimes you get Toy Story 4, which is useless, but they needed to make money this year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I think Toy Story 4 is good. Like, and it's not necessarily useless. Like, I enjoyed my time. It was
better with just 3?
It could have lasted with 3, but I'm thankful that we had a 4th one, is what I would say.
See, I'm the opposite. I'm actually, like, bummed we have a 4th. Because
Really?
I feel like it ruins like the closure and the emotion that I've got in 3. But anyway, that we're getting off topic. I haven't seen the movie, so I don't know if it's bad. But basically, this is just all my surface level impressions. I will watch it when it comes out on digital or Blu-ray because it's Pixar and I watch all of them, you know?
Yeah.
But I didn't want to go out of my way and spend our review watching this movie, talking about it, and then me editing a conversation about it this week whenever we could do something interesting.
Yeah. I will say there are 2 good ideas in this, and it's just that they don't focus on either one enough to give it the heart, you know, that Pixar movies are known for. And I also think we are going to get a Pixar movie later on this year in Soul that will have that heart, and it could be really good.
Yeah, that's the one I'd heard of. That's why I didn't realize this one was Pixar.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess that covers our Pixar movie if we didn't want to talk about it too much.
I mean, I'm glad to know that I'm wrong and that it's good.
Well, I guess what I would say is it's decent. It's a disappointment for Pixar, but if it was DreamWorks, I'd be like, oh, this is really good. You know, does that make sense?
So it's better than I assumed it would be, but not up to like Pixar levels.
Yeah, exactly. Which is a very high standard, I would say.
Oh yeah, for sure. You know, before Coco came out though, I would have told you they were slipping.
I still think there's a little bit of slippage going on, but yeah, I
think Coco is the bright, shining star of Pixar's like filmography of the last decade. And then before that, I think the last exceptional one, in my opinion, was Toy Story 3.
Which
like
was
Finding Dory,
Toy
Story 4. These are all kind of just like standard, you know?
Now I have to... I don't know what the last movies that came out in the last decade are.
It doesn't matter. We've already talked about this much longer than we needed to.
That's true.
Before we move on, Justin, do you have any thoughts? I feel like I hogged this conversation.
No. I mean, you're spot on with the Pixar thing. I mean, Coco is the best movie of the last like 10 years if you don't count Toy Story 3, which came out in 2010, so that's like right at 10 years ago. I think it's far and away the best of the ones that I've seen, which admittedly haven't been a lot because
Inside Out was really good.
Oh, okay. I've heard good things.
Did you see The Good Dinosaur?
No. Yeah.
I think that's their worst movie.
Cool. But as far as Onward goes, I mean, there was maybe some appeal in the sense that like it seemed kind of like too. Are they into like rock and roll or like metal?
Oh yeah, they kind of do more generic. Like they don't get anybody. But yes, the Chris Pratt character is definitely into.
Yeah, they just have this like 80s sort of like metal like band van type thing that they travel around, which just has this like generic level of appeal to me from being in a band and traveling around in a van. So it kind of gets me there, I guess. But outside of that, I didn't have a ton of interest, but you know, Chris is really selling me.
I will say that I got on Twitter, I think like yesterday, and saw some of our peer podcasts raving about this movie.
Wow.
I won't name them, but there were some comments that surprised me with the amount of praise that they found in this movie. So I think people are liking it. So, I mean, who knows?
Yeah. But also people, you know, praise things very hard. So on Twitter anyways, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. It's one extreme or the other.
Yeah. You oversell things or undersell them on Twitter often.
That's true.
So,
yeah. Such is the nature of Twitter, which is why I hate it.
Fair enough. Well, so moving onward from Onward. That's the joke.
Yeah. Onward and upward.
So what else do we have?
Well, last night, as we record this last night, there was a finale on HBO for a show called The Outsider that I have been watching, I guess, for the past 10 weeks now. And I believe, Chris, you watched that as well. Is that right?
I sure did. I didn't even know you were watching it, so...
Yeah. Why don't we go ahead and get started with Chris's thoughts? What do you think of season 1 of The Outsider? Do you think there's going to be a season 2? Where are you at?
I do think that there's going to be a season 2. From everything I've read and seen, it was called the season finale as opposed to a series finale.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. It'll be interesting to see what does happen in season 2. This is actually kind of a hard show to talk about as well because there's kind of spoilers in there. I did really like it. Have you seen The Night Of, Mike?
No, I have not.
Okay, so it's from the same creator, and I really like The Night Of. I suggest both of you guys.
That's the one with Riz Ahmed, right?
Correct. Yeah, Riz Ahmed plays a character that basically gets accused of murder, and it's a very procedural show about like what happens once you get accused of murder and the police that are investigating it and on and on. Very
it
good
looked
show.
extremely depressing.
It is.
Like last year, whenever it was on.
Yeah, it's like it was like two. Anyways, it was a while ago, but it is a really solid show. Very depressing because anytime you get caught up in the system, it's depressing. But that's a really good show. What I was really interested in with The Outsider is you take that procedural basis that the creator of The Night Of and The Outsider has, and you put like Stephen King, which The Outsider is an adaptation of Stephen King, and you kind of get something weird and strange and exciting. And I did like the show quite a bit. I think there are some things that I don't quite gel with. I think typically with Stephen King, endings are a tough thing. But I will say, man, the last 2 episodes, like the bridge between the last 2 episodes was some of the most exciting things I've seen on TV over the last year or so. I think it looks great, and I think the acting, Ben Mendelsohn is in this, and
my boy Ben Mendelsohn.
The acting all around is pretty astounding, and without getting into too many spoilers, that's kind of my thoughts. I do think it's worthwhile. Mike, what do you think?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. I don't know if I'm as high on it as you are, but I really enjoyed the last 2 episodes quite a bit. I think if this is a 10-episode season, it probably would have been better as 8.
Agreed.
Maybe 9. I just feel like maybe it twiddles its thumbs a bit, but it nails the landing, I think. And also, what I would say is I'm interested because this is like a Handmaid's Tale situation where, like, I think, if I'm not mistaken, whereas like they have season 1 is the novel that the series is based on, and anything they choose to do hereafter would be their own story. Is that correct?
From my understanding, yes. I do, and I don't think this is a spoiler, but Cynthia Erivo is also in the show, and she's really great in this. But her character is in other Stephen King's books, some of Cynthia Erivo's character is in some of Stephen King's other books. And so there's maybe something they could do with her character there.
Okay, so yeah, if they make it like maybe like a 2 or 3 season show following her, I can kind of understand it a little bit more. But when it was done, when The Outsider wrapped up, I remember thinking to myself, do we need to keep going with this? Is this a show that we need to make a season 2 of? And I'm not excited to see the show go forward, even though I liked season 1. And I think season 1 ended great. But it feels like there is a scene that was added into the finale that seems like they were waiting to see if the show was going to be like a hit. And if it wasn't, they could have left it out and there could have been no season 2 at all. But anyway,
let me ask you a question. Do you think that we are moving a little more in the direction of these shows that last like one season and are done? Like, is there going to be a second season of Chernobyl?
No, none of Chernobyl.
No, it's done.
And
yeah.
I think Watchmen is one that's been touted as being a one-off.
Watchmen would have gotten. Sorry.
Well, like in the wake of so many like disappointing shows, or maybe it's not so many, but just like the Game of Thrones outrage of a show going on so long that there's no way to end it and make everyone happy. Like, are we going to move more towards these like 1 season or 2 season shows and done? Like things like Fleabag was 2 seasons and done. Although that's more of a British thing.
Yeah, the British have always done that. Watchmen, like Chris was about to say, I think Watchmen gave the opportunity. Like HBO would have done a season 2.
They wanted
but I think luckily HBO is one of the companies that has enough respect for art to where like if the creator doesn't feel like he can do a season 2, they're not going to make him.
Yeah, they're not going to move on without Damon Lindelof type of thing, which is actually pretty great. I think moving on without him would have been disastrous.
Maybe.
At least for me.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, you guys may think differently, but I think it would have been disastrous.
Yeah, there was room for improvement.
Yeah,
so it's not like, it's not like he set the bar so high no one could jump that high.
Agree to disagree.
I agree. But back to The Outsider. What it does is it kind of eases you into the Stephen Kingness of it all really gradually. Maybe a little too gradually because it feels a little slow in the middle, but it's still good. It's always compelling. What I will say is it's not perfect because there are at least 2 or 3 times an episode, there is a line of dialogue spoken that I have to be like, ugh, cringe, because it's just so Stephen King. It's just so corny and like shamelessly so. So if you love Stephen King, this is maybe perfect for you. But like, for example, there is a scene in, I don't know, episode 2 through 6. I don't know. Those all blend together for me. But there's a scene where 2 characters are talking about dreams, and one character is a skeptic and one character is not a skeptic. And he's basically like talking about, I had a dream about this, but it's pretty wacky and dreams don't mean anything. So I don't know why I had that dream. And the other character is like, nah, man, dreams are messages. And I'm sorry, there's just not any way you can say that without being dumb. You know what I mean? It's like that part in Interstellar when Anne Hathaway's like, you know what? Maybe love is the answer to everything. Maybe love transcends like the universe and like gravity and planets and space. Maybe love is what we should be focusing on. Like there are certain ideas that may sound good on paper, but when you say them out loud, I'm like, there's just not a good way to like make them not sound stupid. Did you get that at all, Chris? Or am I like crazy?
I know the scene you're talking about. I don't know that I had that strong of a reaction that you did to it. I do understand that it's somewhat hokey. I liked that Ben Mendelsohn arc.
Oh, I like it too. I'm just saying that like some of the dialogue feels very Stephen King-y at times. Yeah. Where it's like it's too blunt and it's a little too like on the nose to be like tactful or realistic or like not cringy sometimes.
I understand what you're saying, and I think what saves it for me is the level of actors we're working with, because I think those actors can say some pretty ridiculous things and sell it in a way that I believe it.
I 1,000% agree with you on that. Yeah.
Yeah. And even like that line may have been rough, but there's probably like 10 other lines that those 2 actors had to deliver that they sold that were just as bad.
I agree. Yeah. So yeah, what I'm saying is it's made well enough to like for me to overlook the flaws at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure.
And I would say that it's easily worth your time. If you can binge it, even better because I feel like this is a show that does not improve waiting week to week.
That's very possible. I also want to shout out, I think it was episode 7, was directed by J.D. Dillard, who I got to meet at the Graveyard Fest.
That's when the show really started picking up, too.
Yeah, that was a really good episode, episode 7.
That might be the best episode.
Yeah, and he's also slated to possibly direct a Star Wars film, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I'm sure that announcement arriving right as his episode aired was no coincidence either.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
Okay, so that is The Outsider. It sounds like Chris and I both recommend it. And then, anything else, guys?
No, I'm nothing.
All right. Well, we are blowing through this time, and we still have a whole movie to talk about. So I say let's move into our review of The Invisible Man.
Let's do it.
Let's do it, please.
Adrian. He was a sociopath. He said that I could never leave him. He controlled how I looked and what I wore. Then it was controlling when I left the house. And eventually, what I thought. What happened to him?
Adrian's dead.
Listen, you're getting your freedom back, okay?
He said that wherever I went, he would find me. Walk right up to me, and I wouldn't be able to see him. Adrian is dead. He's not dead. He has figured out a way to be invisible.
Okay, so as always with our films that are newer in theaters or just new to VOD, we will be doing a spoiler-free section.
We'll be doing a spoiler section.
Yes, we'll be doing a spoiler-free section where we will be talking about the film very generally, where we won't give away any spoilers. And before we do start talking spoilers, we will give you a warning. We'll play a spoiler bumper so that you have plenty of time to pause the podcast, go see The Invisible Man, come back, and finish listening to the episode.
That's right. So, The Invisible Man was directed by Leigh Whannell.
Lee
Whannell? Anyways, starring Elizabeth Moss, Oliver Jackson Cohen, and Harriet Dyer. The IMDb synopsis says, when Cecilia's abusive ex takes his own life and leaves her his fortune, she suspects his death was a hoax. A series of coincidences turned lethal. As a series of coincidences turned lethal, Cecilia works to prove that she's being hunted by someone nobody can see.
Too long.
Yeah.
It's okay, though.
Yeah, anything that I mess up once when I read out loud, I just deem bad. Not my fault.
Yeah.
Not my fault. Write it better.
Yeah.
I also think the line, as a series of coincidences turned lethal, doesn't sound good to me.
Yeah, not my fault at all. That's what I'm hearing.
No, I know. Yeah, I know. Anyways.
Okay, so guys, who wants to get us started with their thoughts on Invisible Man? I vote Justin because he was gone last week.
Oh, you make me go first?
Unless you don't want to.
No, I can. I was going to vote Chris because he saw it first, but...
I thought about that, but then you were gone last week.
Yeah, Chris also went first on both things and News on the March. Oh.
Yeah, quit being selfish, Chris.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, I'll go first. So this movie, I don't know, was one that I wasn't too intent on seeing based on the trailers. I don't know, kind of looks standard thriller-ish to me. Chris had seen it, and other people on Twitter and wherever else I was looking at movie reviews, had posted some positive things about it. I had seen some very nice words about it, particularly about Elizabeth Moss, who of course is always good, so that is not really a surprise to me. But I went to see this film last night, and I don't know where listeners are, where you guys are, but like it's spring break this week. And I was kind of hoping that I would catch it maybe at a time that like people wouldn't be seeing it, because I don't really like, watching horror movies with big crowds, because usually there's crappy people in there that kind of ruin the vibe and tone of the movie. And I say that to say that I wasn't too impressed with this movie. I liked it just fine. I thought it was decent. There are some moments that seemed pretty bad to me, or like ham-fisted, that I didn't really understand why they were in there, some lines of dialogue, which we'll get into. And I don't know how much this has to do with the audience, because I did have a larger audience with some people goofing around and like taking away some of the vibe of the movie by making noises, talking, laughing, etc. But overall, I couldn't really get into the movie at any one point where I was just able to just like watch the movie, zone in on what was happening, and really just like go with the story. I kept finding myself thinking about other things and thinking about, the way this movie was made or, written in some cases, much more than I was getting sucked into this movie. And I think I also found it a movie that built up in a way that I have a hard time imagining how they would have ended it better, but I don't think I really cared for like the climax of this movie very much. It kind of lost me a little bit there too. So, that's my spoiler-free thoughts. Basically, Elizabeth Moss is good. The movie looks okay. I've neither good nor bad things to say about the way the movie looks. The soundtrack seemed like a typical thriller soundtrack. It's probably the most like standard thing about this movie in the end. That kind of frustrated me with how on the nose the soundtrack seemed to be. But yeah, we'll talk more about it. So I don't know who wants to go next, Mike or Chris. What are your thoughts?
I'll go next. Unlike you, I did enjoy this movie, actually more than I thought I would. So I wouldn't say the movie looked like it had appealed to me before the reviews started coming out. It looked like a pretty standard horror movie, in my opinion, but I'm glad I ended up seeing it at the end. There are some genuinely tense moments that I felt, and some twists that worked, some of which were pretty obvious, I will say. But there were a couple twists on top of those that I didn't see coming. Like you said, Elizabeth Moss is very effective. I am interested to see kind of like where you find the problems. I felt like the movie was mostly pretty smart the whole time, although I do sympathize with the idea that an audience can bring you out of the movie. I recently rewatched Midsummer, the director's cut of it, like the longer version. Mm-hmm. And I enjoyed it twice as much as I did the first time. Like, nice. I mean, it was night and day difference. And the reason being is because I watched it with a bunch of drunk college kids who were making jokes and laughing and giggling the whole time. So I was completely incapable of even getting into Midsummer, getting on its level, getting on its wavelength. Like, I couldn't because the audience wasn't. You know what I mean?
For sure, yeah. And I remember us talking about that heavily on our Midsummer episode because...
Yeah, it really made me mad. It depressed me because I don't go to movies wanting to not like them. You know what I mean? For especially ones, follow-up movies from directors that I admire. So, Invisible Man. This was a movie that, like I said, I wasn't looking forward to it until the reviews came out. And then Chris said it was good. I didn't want to see Onward particularly. So I thought this looked better. So let's talk about the cinematography for a minute. You said the movie looks okay. You're probably right. The movie's not an impressive looking movie, but it also doesn't feel like a cheap looking movie either. And I think that's to the movie's credit because this movie was filmed for like 6-7 million?
Yeah, it's definitely a low budget film.
The audience I was with was captivated. You know what I mean? None of them cared about the budget. None of them cared about the camera work or the score. They were in it. Although they were annoying, they reacted. They gasped. They commented out loud. You know what I mean? And sometimes that worked and sometimes it didn't. I'm grateful for the experience. And I think the movie is pretty thrilling. So I'm excited to get to spoilers eventually and kind of hear you break down what you thought didn't live up to it and kind of compare and contrast our thoughts. But that's where I'm coming down. It's not great, but I think it is easily solid. Not better than like the A24 round of movies like Hereditary and The Witch, but like this beats the pants off the Conjuring movies, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a solid Blumhouse film. I like this movie. In fact, I'm going to say best film of the year.
I agree with you. Yeah.
So far, which is like 5 movies that I've seen that came out this year.
Right.
There's not much to say that you guys haven't already said. I will say about the camera work, I completely agree. While I'm watching this film, I am searching the frame to see if I can find indentions on the couch or to see if I can't find the Invisible Man.
I'm always searching for something in the frame to like give me a clue.
Yeah, some sort of evidence, like and I think in that way, it creates suspense and puts you on the edge of your seat. I don't know that there's ever anything to find, but it makes you want to find that. And in that creation, it makes it good. Go ahead.
Isn't that just inherent with the story more than it is the camera work. I mean, granted, if the camera didn't was in all close-ups with no room to look anywhere, fine. But like, you know, I think that's just inherently something you do, you know, regardless of the framing, unless the director just gives you nowhere to look.
I disagree. I mean, right now we're following Elizabeth Moss. We're following her psyche. And if you're in it with her and you're worried with her and you're worried for her, you're looking where she's looking. You're wondering if he's there where she's looking. You know what I mean? Like, there's always a corner of a room where nothing's happening.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, maybe that may be inherent in the idea of having an invisible villain, but I think it's doing a movie a disservice to say that the director and the shots are not capitalizing on that idea.
Yeah, it may be inherent in a movie like this, but he does use it to his advantage, I think. I mean, specifically the...
Undoubtedly, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. Elizabeth Moss is great, and I think that's the thing that sold me on this film. You know, like you guys, just in general, this isn't a movie that I'm super excited about, but Elizabeth Moss being in it piques my curiosity, and I do like the way they kind of changed up the story of the Invisible Man, because I think this really works. You know, like an ex-boyfriend gaslighting somebody, and I think that I mean,
it's a very 2019, 2020 plot.
Yeah, for sure, it is. But it works, I think, whether it's 2020 or it's 2015.
It never takes the step too far into being too lame to do that.
And it's not necessarily preaching, you know, like...
Yeah, it doesn't feel like The Handmaid's Tale, which is another Elizabeth Moss thing that I watch sometimes, and I'm like, yep, I know what they're trying to say, because they're, you know, not being subtle at all with it.
Yeah, so that works for me. Yeah, I really enjoy this film. One thing I'm going to say about audience, Justin... Mike doesn't have this option, but you do live somewhat close to an Alamo Drafthouse where you don't have to worry about people talking. If you just go to the Alamo Drafthouse, man.
That's true, but it's a far drive, and it costs me money because I have the Regal Pass for the cinema that's close to me, so I can see unlimited movies.
You pay for the lowest common denominator.
Yeah, and then you get
watch
a bad
movies
audience.
with the lowest common denominator.
I'm cheap.
But... So at least with the horror films, maybe the Alamo Drafthouse. The Alamo Drafthouse just opened up their season pass, so...
Yeah, but that's too far.
Anyways,
yeah. I normally do reserve, like, horror movies for the Alamo, but on this particular day, it just didn't work out timing-wise, because it is a bit of a drive.
Makes sense.
I will say that if you have managed to get this far without seeing any trailers to this movie, do not watch them.
Yeah.
I made the mistake of watching season 3 of The Handmaid's Tale with my girlfriend 2 weeks ago because she wanted me to catch up on it because I kind of fell off of it while it was going on. During that, I kid you not, I had to watch 3 trailers for The Invisible Man every commercial break. And they give things all the way up until Act 3 in the trailer. So don't watch the trailer. If you can avoid it, don't watch it. I wished I hadn't seen it, because there were times where I was like, well, she still has to get to this place. So I'm not super worried right now.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I've seen the trailer too, and there was, even though I don't remember things in Act 3 that I saw in the trailer necessarily, but I do remember moments of thinking like, oh, this hasn't happened from the trailer, or like some of the suspense is gone because I know what's coming.
Right, exactly.
So I'm with you.
You know, these watch everyone think the main character is going crazy while we all know they aren't going crazy tales. These always stress me out.
It's the being accused of a crime that you didn't commit type of thing. You're like, I didn't do it.
The more you try to deny it or try to explain it, the crazier you seem.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I don't know. Well, maybe that's a spoiler, so I won't talk about that.
Yeah, I do have one major complaint.
Okay.
For spoilers, but let me just say for non-spoilers, I will say that I agree with you on the end. The last 2 minutes of this movie, I feel, are tonally completely off from the rest of the movie and do leave me... It seems like the end of The Quiet Place. It seems like at the end of the movie, the studio was like, we got to have a hook at the end.
What if it's successful?
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotcha.
So there we go. I think the ending does take the movie down a little bit in my book.
Yeah,
quite a bit, actually.
That was one of the things I was going to say I do agree with. I think there's like a denouement. I think that's what it is. Like, after the climax or whatever. And that part, you know, I'm not as high on. But I think everything before that was pretty cool.
Yeah. So spoilers?
Spoilers.
Let's go.
Okay, so real quick before we move into spoilers, I'm sitting at a 4 out of 5. Where are you guys at?
I'm right there with you, Mike. 4 out of 5.
I'm at a 3 out of 5. So
All right.
I didn't dislike it.
Yeah. Sounds like we all at least recommend it to some degree.
Totally.
Yeah.
2 of us enthusiastically so. So, spoilers.
No, I guess Rosebud is just a piece in a jigsaw puzzle.
How many cigarettes you got up there? I'll tell you all about it.
Things are going to start happening to me now.
And here we go.
Now that we are in spoilers, let me bust out my main complaint besides the ending.
Okay.
If I have one complaint, it would be I feel like we should have gotten more of Adrian, whatever his last name is, Griffin. Like, I don't know, before he gets introduced as the Invisible Man, I feel like we didn't get enough time for me to really condemn him the way that she condemned him. I believe her when she tells me he's a bad boyfriend, but because I didn't see it, I don't necessarily, I think she's blowing things out of proportion for the first 30 minutes, even though logically as a moviegoer, I know that things have to happen because it's the Invisible Man. It's not about a man who's not invisible, not stalking someone. But I don't know. I feel like the movie starts out with her leaving him. And then we hear secondhand how bad of a dude he was. But, you know, I don't know. And I believe it the whole time, you know, and I'm on her side. But I do wish that we could have maybe seen flashbacks, or maybe the movie could have started out 5 minutes before that scene where she gets up in the middle of the night and tries to escape. I don't know. I may be completely alone in that. What do you guys think?
For me, what I'll say is the way that she has to escape from him shows me everything that I need to know about him.
Well, and this may be just me like not knowing what I was in for. As I was sitting down for the first, 5 minutes of the movie, like I thought she was stealing from him. I didn't realize she was escaping a bad relationship. I thought he was rich and she was like doing something shady herself. And it wasn't until she got to like her friend's house and was like talking to people that I realized, oh, okay, it was a bad relationship and she ran away. Because he's in a really rich science fiction-y house. He must be the titular Invisible Man. So I'm thinking, okay, this is the guy that's going to create some technology to be invisible here in a minute. He's a genius. She must be stealing from him because he's a genius or something, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't get that. So for me, it was just that seeing how she had to escape and the extreme lengths that she had to go through to get away from him, to me, that shows that he's a very, very controlling and, extremely controlling and not a great boyfriend. And then, of course, once she gets to the car, he shows up as well. And it's pretty obvious that he's not a great boyfriend in that way for me. So,
well, yeah, I didn't think he was a great boyfriend, but I also thought like she was sneaking out for like she had a duffel bag ready to go. I didn't realize that was just her stuff. You know what I mean? I thought she was like stealing his tech or something. But then again, that's my fault for just thinking too much in the first act of the movie and not really knowing what the plot of the movie actually was.
Well, I think that what you're saying hits upon a bigger point for me in that I would like to have a little bit more understanding of him as a person, because the way that he acts as the Invisible Man and the things that he's doing, I just seemed like so cartoonishly evil that it didn't have any grounding for me, like in reality, because I don't understand this character at all. And he's doing, ridiculous things like faking his own death and like somehow getting his brother in on this and like stalking her and like hurting people and killing people over like this girl. And like none of that connects with me. And this movie isn't necessarily the type of fun horror movie for me that works. Does that make sense? Like, it's not like it's Michael Myers, right?
Right. Well, yes and no. So like I'll respond to that first because I'm the one that had the problem with wanting to know more about Adrian to begin with. While I want to know more about him, I also feel like 30 minutes into the movie, like once the first act is over with, I don't have that same problem anymore because they do the work to make you think that not only is he a bad boyfriend, which is like that's being reductive, the personality traits they describe, like they're that of classic narcissism. Like so, like me as an audience member, I'm able to kind of deduce what's wrong with him. He has no empathy. He has no caring for other people.
That's why he's doing these things. Are they cartoonishly evil? Of course they are. That's why it's the Invisible Man. But I think the movie does enough work to tell us, once Act 2 starts, that Adrian is a dangerous man. So, like, I felt like he was capable of anything because she painted the portrait of a man who was unhinged. But because he's so successful and because he's like a handsome, rich white dude, he can be unhinged and still be successful. And that's not a big deal.
I think what I would say is that a lot of the stuff that the Invisible Man does to Elizabeth Moss, especially at the beginning, starts off really small.
Yeah, and I think there's enough foreshadowing to where, like, I never thought it jumped the shark or anything.
Well, and it works its way up. I mean, it starts off just leaving the stove on, or like turning the stove up as she walks away for just a second, and it starts a fire.
Right,
you know?
But and also, whenever it gets to the worst part of it, though, you can look back on everything that happened and see that it was a clear series of events where he was trying to bring her mental state into question. Right. By ramping it up gradually.
Yeah, for sure. It's a gradual thing. And I think also Elizabeth Moss's character kind of pulls off the paranoid delusion like aspect of it really well. That sells it really well, I think. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can kind of agree to disagree on that. I'm not going to say that you guys are wrong. It's just,
Yeah, for sure.
Didn't quite work for me. Like, I'm not sure if the movie wanted me to have fun or like take this seriously. It's kind of this mashup of Elizabeth Moss's performance versus the score versus like how ridiculously evil this guy is versus like the Me Too 2020 message thing that's kind of in there. You know what I mean? Like I'm not having fun, but I'm not also like invested in this like enough emotionally.
Well, see, I don't get the fun vibe. I don't get like this isn't like the tone of this movie isn't the same as like I don't understand why like I don't think that you should be getting the impression that you should be having fun. Like in my opinion, I think this movie takes itself more seriously than something like Midsommar. Maybe not quite as seriously as something like Hereditary, but I don't think that this movie is like winking at you too much.
Well, I guess that's what I mean, I guess, is that like the villain is so evil that it doesn't work for me. Like there's not enough grounding in it for the movie to be as serious as it is.
Let me ask you, have you seen any version of The Invisible Man or any like Hollow Man? Have you seen any of those movies?
I've seen Hollow Man.
Okay. I had that similar opinion during Hollow Man when I first saw it like a long time ago. Not the best movie.
Right.
I guess it's just one of these things. So it's like when I know I'm going to watch a movie called The Invisible Man or, a movie about an invisible man, whether it be a remake by a different name or whatever, I know that the movie has to end with the power of invisibility causing the character to abandon any set of morals that a normal human would have. That's just what happens in every Invisible Man story. So while I sympathize with what you're saying, that's the Invisible Man for you. You know what I mean? That's the plot of the Invisible Man. It's like the idea of like if a human could have this power, there's no way they wouldn't do shady things.
Right.
And so if he happens to be a narcissistic, toxic boyfriend, that's what it's going to be. And that's the movie that they decided to make. It's a little on the nose, I will give you. Whenever they announced The Invisible Man, I think we all should have been like, oh yeah, we're going to have like a really evil invisible dude.
Yeah, and I would just like more behind that. You know what I mean? To make it...
Yeah.
To understand where it's coming from. Whereas when I don't understand where it's coming from, that's when it loses me.
Yeah, like I said, I would have liked maybe 5 more minutes at the beginning. But
yeah, that might have helped. I'm with you on that for sure.
Anyway, Chris, what do you think?
I maintain my previous points.
Well, if you have any other points to make, if you don't have anything new to add.
Oh, yeah. I guess we can move. Oh, do you have something else?
No, we can move on.
Okay, so I mentioned earlier that my main complaint, other than like we didn't get enough with Adrian and I didn't quite think his character, like Justin, I didn't think he did realistic things. I think my main complaint is the end. Felt tonally off. I like the whole part where she puts on the second invisible suit that she hid in the closet earlier in the movie. I like that. That was cool. Good foreshadowing, good returning to a scene that we visited earlier in the movie. The one thing I didn't like was after she kills Adrian, which I did like. I like how he looked like he cut his own throat on camera. I thought that was really cool. Mm-hmm. And I like how she said the same thing to him. But man, as soon as she leaves the house and talks to her friend, and she's carrying the invisible suit with her, and they're trying to tag on this like Marvel ending to this movie.
I think their conversation felt that way. I had that same thought that like, or at least what I'm assuming is the same thought that, you know, she's taking the suit. So what happens now that she has the suit? What comes next?
Like, why would she not just destroy the suit right away?
Well, that was my question. I was like, well, where would she destroy the suit now? She needs to take the suit because if they find the suit, then there is a like taking the suit with her is removing the evidence of what she did from the house. So I thought, okay, she's got to take it with her or destroy it. But as quickly as things were happening, you know, taking it with her and destroying it later, that's kind of where I go in my mind to make peace with that. Because otherwise I feel the same way as you.
Yeah. What about you, Chris?
It feels like a tag on, you know, for like a sequel.
What the hell would we want a sequel of this character doing?
I
don't want her to put on the invisible suit and do anything. I don't want this to be her origin story.
Yeah.
That would ruin the whole movie for me.
I do think it's possible that they still are working on the like dark universe for these monster movies or whatever they want to call.
I fear that too. But as of now, I think the movie's good. If they try to make this an Avengers type event where like the Invisible Woman is now like a thing where like she teams up with Dracula or whatever to like fight the Loch Ness monster or whatever, like I'm done.
Actually, that sounds like a good movie.
No, it doesn't.
Invisible Woman teams up with Dracula to fight the Loch Ness monster.
You remember Batman versus Superman and how that turned out?
Anything where anybody fights the Loch Ness monster.
Remember Freddy versus Jason? Having
I like Freddy
popular
versus
IPs
Jason.
fight each other doesn't make a good movie.
I like Freddy versus Jason. Alien versus Predator, though, not a good one.
Yeah, I actually do like Freddy versus Jason, or at least I did at the time.
Yeah.
Anyways, I feel we got a little off topic on that, but yeah, I'm lukewarm on that. If they do any more, they'll have to impress me and see what happens. It just the ending segment feels a little weird. I mean, kind of just the mechanics of all that. Like he's locked in the room, you know, like and the brother was part of it. You know, like it feels weird and a little tagged on. And I guess she has to confront him, like the non-invisible man at that time. But it just feels a little weird. The whole like
I like
come
the
on
scene
into
where
the
she actually
house.
confronts him.
Emotionally abused you, you know, like I guess she has to go back. Anyways, it just feels a little weird.
I felt a little weird about just like the plan that she did. Just in some ways, it felt a little too simple to versus this guy who put together this elaborate invisible suit and elaborate plan to fake his own death and somehow manipulate his brother. And like, she makes such a big deal about how he can read her mind all the time and understand what she's thinking. I found the ending to be like her actually what she did, like go and put the suit on and making it look like he sliced his own throat, a little underwhelming. And maybe the movie just wrote itself into a place where nothing could have satisfied me because I don't have an answer of what would have been better. I just know that I felt a little disappointed. I was like, oh, that's how like I thought that he might be smarter.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. I kind of enjoyed it because I feel like he overplayed his hand. He thought he had beaten her.
There's one moment that I really like out of that, and he's like, surprise, you know, like whatever it is. And
yeah, he's so confident that he feels like he can even taunt her in that moment. And I don't think he thought she was capable of doing such a thing. So I like the idea that she turned the tables on him and like showed a side of her that even he couldn't like predict because he didn't realize what he'd driven her to.
Mm-hmm.
But I can understand where you're coming from on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
One last thing, I think. Sorry, unless you have something else, Justin.
No, go ahead.
One last thing, and that is, I actually like the design of the suit. I don't know how you guys feel of it, but I really liked it. I thought it was a cool design.
Yeah, I understood it, you know?
Yeah.
And like immediately without them having to do too much explaining of how the suit works, if any. They might have mentioned it a little bit, but like...
No, he's really good with optics, you see.
Yes.
But yeah, it works, and it's simple and cool looking, unless you have that phobia where like the same like of beehives, you know, that phobia. Anyways,
Sure.
drive you pretty crazy. But yeah, I like the design. I thought it was pretty cool. And I like that it wasn't, the first thing I thought when I saw that little apparatus, that he had is that he would go stand in it and it would like spray something on him and he'd be.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be invisible like Hollow Man.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking too. So I like the suit better than like chemically altering your body.
Yeah, like rather than him just being naked the whole movie, running around outside and like living naked so no one could see him. Like no blankets ever. This guy never gets cold.
Every movie to me is an Invisible Man movie because there's always like invisible men and women running around naked in every movie. You just can't see them.
Well, that's an interesting fantasy, Chris.
Yeah. I don't think anyone's going to top that.
Yeah. No. I think you should tell your therapist about that one.
You guys are my therapist.
Oh. This is what we're doing every week.
Then have I got a prescription for you?
Finally.
Yeah. Okay, well, anything else on The Invisible Man before we move on?
No, I'm still sitting at a solid 4 out of 5.
Yep, I'm good. I enjoy it. I recommend it. It's a good, especially this time of year. Although, if you have Portrait of a Lady near you, on a Portrait of a Lady on Fire, or stuff left over from last year, you should probably go see some of those. But this one's definitely a good, solid 2020 movie. Yeah,
Parasite's still playing in some places.
That's true.
I think I even saw Jojo Rabbit.
But The Invisible Man, if you're in for horror, Invisible Man is better than any horror movie that you were probably gonna go see.
Except for Sonic the Hedgehog. That's a pretty horrific movie.
I actually thought it was pretty cute.
Oh, wow.
Well, yeah. I spoke without seeing it, so.
Not great. Certainly not great.
Cool. Well.
Wait, you watched Sonic, and you didn't want to watch Onward?
I mean, I'll watch Onward when it presents an opportunity for me to see it more conveniently.
Okay.
But I don't want to support just another generic cartoon being made just because it's been a year since they've had another cartoon.
I think it's fair.
Let's just throw Chris Pratt and Tom Holland into something.
They were both in that Marvel movie that was successful.
Yeah, let's throw Owen Wilson into a car movie. It doesn't matter if it's good. Let's make a movie about a dinosaur. We got to make a movie next year, guys. Come on.
Yeah, they threw their integrity out when they capitalized on Larry the Cable Guy and threw him into a movie.
Yeah, it's true. Pixar's never been the same.
All right. Facts.
Real talk.
And with those facts, that does it for this episode, right?
Mm-hmm. I believe so.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. And of course, as always, thank you, Jake Wagner Russell, for doing our intro and outro music. If you want to hear more of his music, you can do so at soundcloud.com/bopscotch.
And stay tuned to this feed. Subscribe to us because the next episode we are going to be putting out is another Casually Criterion episode on the Virgin Suicides, chosen by our special guest last week, Matt Ward.
That's right. And follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Casual Cinecast to vote in our Casually Criterion polls so you can help choose the next Criterion film we cover. You can also send your questions about the movies we're reviewing each week to any of those accounts or to casualcinemedia@gmail.com.
That's right. If you have any thoughts on our takes on The Invisible Man, if we missed something, or if we are right, if Justin is wrong, whatever.
That's most likely.
Yeah. Email us. We would love to read it, and we may even read it on the show.
True.
Don't let your voices be invisible right into the show.
That's right. Don't be an invisible man or woman.
Yeah.
Speak up.
Well, thanks so much for listening, guys, and we will see you next time, unless you're invisible.
Bye.
Goodbye.